How many opportunities have you missed out on, or how much time have you wasted? How much life have you wasted uh, by sitting and feeling sorry for yourself, or thinking you can't, or not trying something new because you don't believe in yourself, or you don't have the energy to do it? Well, today we're going to be talking about the positive intelligence and taking control of your saboteurs, and how to unleash some extra energy in your life. My name is Corey Harlock. I'm the creator of Key Hire, and I'll be your host today. Welcome to the Key Hire Small Business Podcast. This is season 2, episode 10. We're ticking along here. We thank you for tuning in. If you like what you hear today, give us a like, give us a share, subscribe, and make sure if you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, you can also check out the audio blogs that we release down the road. We have lots of those on there for you too on any of your major platforms. So without further ado, we're going to be talking to Jane Weddle today. She defines herself as a business life coach, and she utilizes the positive intelligence, or PQ, operating system to help business owners. She's got 30 years of coaching and org development, from small businesses to Fortune 500 companies, and she's worked in all kinds of different industries. And her core belief is mindset is the biggest obstacle to your success. She's also lucky enough to have had COVID twice, and she's just getting over her second bout now. I think she said she was on day 8, and she'll be joining us from Nebraska. So Jane, Matt, if we can bring Jane on.
Hi.
How are you doing, Jane? How did I do?
Good. You did awesome.
Did we get it?
It's actually my third time with COVID.
Oh, third. See, I didn't do. I was wrong. I got some of it wrong.
That's all right. It's not like a badge of honor that I want to have.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So today we're talking about positive mindset. You're an expert in this. I know, personally. I think we all have the gremlins, right? The head trash, whatever you want to call it, that gets in the way.
Yeah. Mind chatter.
Yeah, and I know some people. There's if it leads to depression, and I don't want to make this light, but you can get the vegetative depression or the hyperactive depression and all that different stuff, right?
Yes.
That's kind of when it gets far down the road. I mean, I'll put my hand up. My life. I think
Me
we
too.
all, right?
Yep.
And so, walk us through. When we talk about taking control of your saboteurs, I think maybe the first thing we need to do is, can we define what saboteurs are when it comes to kind of positive intelligence?
Certainly. The first thing that comes to mind, the best way to explain it is that we have 2 parts of our brain. We have our survivor brain, and we have the executive part of our brain where we thrive, and our survivor brains where we survive. And that's where our saboteurs lie. And in positive intelligence, Shirzad Chamine, basically he defines that we all have master saboteur called the judge. And the judge has 9 accomplice saboteurs that utilizes. And when I work with clients, I really spend more time on looking at how is that master judge showing up. And the accomplice saboteurs are like, an example of accomplice saboteur the judge might use is an avoider, or the victim, or the hyperachiever, or the hyper rational. There's several of them, and they're all pretty basically easy to identify. The stickler. And so there's all these saboteurs we have, and that creates the mind chatter in our head. We hear these voices, as you mentioned earlier, going off in our head. But the judge is the master saboteur in the PQ operating system with the other accomplice saboteurs. And they play with us every day in very obvious ways and very subtle ways. Because if you look at it, our brain is wired to go negative. And so they love to keep us in that space of survive versus thrive. And that's where they start, is the saboteurs want to control that mind chatter to be net negative. Sure. Versus they don't want you to start having any net positive mind chatter.
It's the old expression, right? In absence of information, people will make it up, and they never make up the scenario to be really good and fun and positive, right? They always go to worst case scenarios.
Yeah. Well, and if you look at, there's different mixes out there, but and I'm no neuroscientist, but but I love reading about neuroscience stuff. And we are our brain. We have this thing on our head, and we like to think that it doesn't do anything for us, but it's our internal operating system. And we
Right.
spend a lot of
Yeah.
time as business owners on external operating systems, our business operating systems, but we don't take much time to look at our internal operating system and how it's how we're showing up and how it's working for us.
So that's a cool way to describe it, the internal operating system.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to go back, and I'm going to throw you a bit of a curveball, but you said there are seven accomplices to the judge, and I'm sure there are people that are thinking, well, you threw a few out of those, and some of them sounded like it could be me. So can we just take like a minute here, and could you kind of tell us what they are, and maybe just a brief overview, like a 10-second overview of each one? So I know I'm wondering what they are, and I'm sure there's like, oh, I want to know what they are. I want to know if any of them resonate with me.
Yeah, there's actually nine. And so, like, I'll throw out the avoider. The avoider saboteur is pretty obvious. They want to keep you in avoidance. Hence the word. They want you to avoid working on that project or having that conversation with your, business, if you have another business owner or on your team. They want you to avoid. They want to keep you in that avoidance. The judge uses that. The controller saboteur. The judge uses that saboteur to make you feel like you constantly have to control things. So therefore, well, I can't delegate something. I got to keep in control. Or I need to really be involved in every level of decision. I've listened to some of the other podcast episodes that you guys have had, and I hear a lot of reference about, being, and I see it with the business owners I work with, so in the weeds. Well, that's part of that controller saboteur being used by the judge to say, no, you've got to stay in the weeds.
That sounds like the micromanager to me.
It can be. A micromanager definitely has has a strong saboteur, accomplice saboteur, the controller. And that's why I said has, because you are not a controller, you are not an avoider, you are not the saboteur. In the PQ operating system, you have those saboteurs that show up in various ways during your day. And in a week, I can see all 9 saboteurs show up based on what I'm working on that the judge is using. But the judge is the master saboteur. The judge is the one that wants to make you feel shame, guilt, feel like you should, keep driving and driving and driving, and the hyperachiever is a saboteur that uses, and hyperachiever is one of my highest ones that I have. And it's hyper because being an achiever is a strength.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing to want to.
However, with all the saboteurs, they all have strengths, but a strength taken too far or overused then becomes something that's working more against you. So as a hyperachiever, it's basically, I can keep going, I can keep, achieving, and I'll be happy when I get this next thing accomplished or this next accolade, etc. And then you just get stressed and burned out. Hyper rational, they're basically really focused, just as it sounds, on rationalizing everything too much. Hence hyper rational. It's an overdrive. It's good to have, be rational, but when a strength taken too far becomes hyper rational. Hyper vigilant is somebody that's just always on guard. Think about those people in your life who are just like, over vigilant about threats that might come or dangers, etc. The pleaser, that's another one that I have that's pretty high. And you just constantly want to, please people and go above and aboard for them at the sacrifices of your own detriment. Restless is a saboteur where you're starting on best way to describe the restless is it can show up as being, feeling like you always got to keep going. And you may start something and like, okay, well, that's getting a little boring now. I want to go to this, so that restlessness. I grew up on a dairy farm in southeast Nebraska. And when I saw how Shahzad explained the restless, I thought half the time I go up to my mom and say, I'm bored. And I was never bored on the farm because we always had to be working. But there was moments where you didn't have a lot of, you didn't have a friend down the block you could just run down to. So
Right.
I would sometimes feel restless. It's like, okay, because you had to create your own, energy, your own things to do at times,
Right.
et cetera, growing up on a farm. And then I mentioned the victim, and that's just the victim saboteur is always looking at like, oh gosh, for example, victim saboteur showed up when I got COVID the third time.
Sure.
Why am I keep getting COVID?
Right. Yeah.
I'm very careful. I work out of my home, et cetera. So that victim saboteur, but we have all of them. And there's actually a saboteur assessment that I think we're going to share in the links somewhere that, or people can get in touch with me and take the saboteur assessment to see how they're showing up for you.
And let's just, Matt, do we have that link for the assessment so we can flash it at the end? If not, I'm sure he's frantically Googling right now. But it's funny when you said the restless.
See, now his saboteurs are going off. Sorry to interrupt.
So when you said restless, I'm always trying. My wife is always accusing me of starting projects and never finishing them. Mm-hmm. And I've been for 20 something years now trying to convince her that I'm the starter and she's the finisher. She's the closer. I get it started and she finishes it. It hasn't worked very well, Jane.
Yeah. Well, and probably a little bit of avoider saboteurs being used there by the judge, et cetera. But it's
well, as you're going through them, I'm like, check.
Yeah. See, yeah. And yeah, it's just one of the things that I work with people on mindset is noticing is just noticing, just step back and noticing what's showing up for you. Becoming aware is one of the first steps of any operating systems. Becoming aware of how are those thoughts working for you versus against you.
And that's a great segue into kind of there it is. Attaboy, Matt. So that's a good segue into our second question, which is, what are the mistakes a business owner might make? And, you've outlined the saboteurs and we kind of know that. So maybe let's maybe talk about the mistakes they might say when they say, I'm going to change my mindset. I'm going to change the way I think about things. What are some of the common mistakes or pitfalls a business owner, because we know business owners carry a big burden, right? They've created this business to create wealth and success, not only for themselves, but to enable themselves and their employees and the families of those employees and even the community, right? They want to enrich all of those areas of their community. And, when we talk to them, a lot of times we often hear like, man, the stress of, or the pressure of knowing that the paycheck I give to people is keeping food on their families' tables, is, if it's not the main driver, it's probably in the top 5 or 10 for most small business owners. Yeah, and so if they're listening and saying, "Oh man, I'm checking a lot of boxes here, but I'm just going to do this on my own." What are some of those mistakes or pitfalls they might make when they try to kind of create some positive intelligence or correct their own, as you call it, internal operating system?
Well, what tends to happen is we tend to have like 50 to 80,000 negative, thoughts a day. And of those thoughts, they say that 80 to some percent is in a net negative bucket. And and 95% of them, some studies show that we tend to have the same ones ruminate over and over during the week. And I think in the business owners I work with, I think what happens is they start making that shift towards more of a forward focused, net positive thinking, feeling, executing, the behavior that will move them forward. But what happens after a while is that survivor brain, we have it for a reason. And when it's not getting fed, it wants to be utilized because and it's been with us for a very long time. We've operated that way because we do tend to, as humans, lean more on the net negative side of things. And so it wants to draw us back in. And so I think when business owners feel like the stress is coming in, they go to what's comfortable for them. We go to our comfort zone. And I know this. I know I've been successful, even though it's been stressful. I know this way of operating, and I've had some success, or I've had great success. However, as I'm trying to shift my habits to being, more net positive in my approach to how I show up, if for some reason you start not feeling like it's showing enough proof in your brain,
right,
it wants to go back to the default of the survivor brain. And we actually are just trying, with the positive intelligence operating system, what we're trying to do is build new neural pathways, because we have these strong pathways towards the survivor brain and such. But through the operating system, which one part of the operating system is intercepting your saboteurs, including the master saboteur, name it to tame it, see that they're showing up. The second part of the operating system is building that self-command muscle, and through what Shirzad calls PQ reps. And they're forms of meditation, but they're eyes open, eyes closed. They can be done moving. They can be, standing up, sitting down. There's all different forms of it. And then the other part of the operating system is utilizing and switching to that executive, what Shirzad calls your PQ sage brain, is you want to build your sage powers and your sage perspective. And that's the part of the operating system. And so I think, back to your question, I just think it's what I've seen with business owners is it's too easy to go back to what's comfortable and what they know. And it's also that fear of success or fear of failure is when people try to go out on their own, that occurs. But people, read books, they go to workshops, they listen to podcasts like this. And one of the things is partly what we're trying to do with the operating system is build your mental muscles. Just like you go to the gym to build those physical muscles, you want to build those mental muscles because they're not as strong as they need to be to move to that forward focus sage part of your brain. And it's getting out of that comfort zone for people.
And as you're talking, it kind of, I think it's that fear of, well, this way of doing things got me where I am.
Yes,
and
definitely.
If I change that, am I going to lose my success? But a lot of times, yes, it got you where you are, but it could be the constraint or the limitation that's keeping you from moving to the next phase too.
Yeah,
I created this concept called that a lot of business owners are in love with the chaos of their business and not with their product, right?
Yeah.
They don't, what they value is how hard they have to work to produce their product or service versus loving the quality and the timeliness and the OTD, the on-time delivery of their service or product. And often, if you bring in someone like you or a professional, someone who's trained in lean, and they say, man, we can make this really easy for you. sometimes they resist that because they go, well, if it's too easy, I can't charge as much because we can't say we had to work hard. And
Yes.
it's kind of misplaced, right? Because people aren't buying how hard you work. They don't care. They just care
Yes.
that you got them the right product or the service to their
Yes.
job site or wherever on the time you said you were going to be, and it was a high quality product and they could trust it wasn't going to break down, or the service you provided fixed what they needed fixed on time.
Yes.
And because you can do that, they'll kind of almost pay you whatever you want if you're the person that can deliver that. And
Yes.
they really don't care that you had to take 3 planes and rent 4 cars and haven't slept in 48 hours to do that.
Yeah.
They just care that their equipment's up and running and we can get back to generating revenue.
Yeah, exactly. And when you shared that story, you had shared that story on a previous podcast. And when I was listening to it, I thought so much about how that particular business, how much their judge and the accomplice saboteurs were showing up and blocking them from making a decision that could be more ease and flow and even more profitable for them than they are now.
Yeah.
But their belief system, because our brain, and how we function is really, we have these beliefs, and then we have these feelings and these emotions, and then that forms our thoughts, then that forms our actions.
Right.
And when I was listening to that particular podcast that you did, I just thought how that person, how that company is working so much on an old operating system and not open to seeing what's possible with a new internal operating system that they could develop and actually have more ease and flow.
Sure.
And probably be more than likely, I would bet I would bet money on it that they would be even more profitable and make more money than they're
And they
making
would have,
now.
but beyond that, they would have happier employees who
Yeah.
would be working more regular hours. There would be more stability in the business. Productivity would go up. Their
Definitely.
their injuries and workers' comp would go down because people are well rested and not. It's just this flywheel of really good stuff that goes off. But and I never ever want to paint a business owner like they're making bad decisions intentionally because they're bad people.
No.
They're always, these are people that have invested time, money, blood, sweat, tears, everything
Definitely.
they have into their businesses.
Definitely.
It's I don't know if it's motivation through fear or, like we talked about before, just that kind of overwhelming sense of responsibility to their family, to other families, to communities, to the clients, whatever it is, right? And so it's you and I parallel each other in our work in terms of trying to get them to take a chance, but a very measured chance, right? In my situation, I usually know what the outcome is going to be if I can get them to trust and try something new. And once they do it and they see it be successful, they're kind of like, oh, I like, now let's do more of that. And so would that kind of be, once you kind of start taming these saboteurs, is there some momentum that gets gained, or what does you talked about work, right? And when you're rewiring neural pathways, I don't know a lot about it. I know the term brain plasticity and all that good stuff. And I know it doesn't happen overnight. So it feels like there's a bit of an investment and a little bit of work that has to happen.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, over the time that I've helped people improve their performance and their mindset and we're just such an instant gratification culture. So a lot of people get like, oh, well, this isn't working, I just don't have what it takes.
Right.
And so that's all the master saboteur, the judge speaking to you. And so then you start believing it and you give up, you stop. And I think that it's important for people to realize it's what is 1% I can do better this week to work more on moving forward and having more net positive thinking versus letting my survivor saboteurs rule, what direction, what's 1%. And the more that you start seeing these, I'll just call them wins, PQ wins, let's call it, then you begin to build up that trust in the operating system, and you start building trust within yourself, and you start beginning to see what is possible and how life can be different.
Right.
And I'm working with a group right now that's going through the PQ operating system of 4 CEOs. And it's remarkable how some of their belief systems, like one of the people in the group, when they started, said, one of my superpowers is I'm a productive procrastinator. However, as they're going through the operating, they're starting to realize that you can't be a productive procrastinator.
Right.
So they're already beginning to see, through implementing the operating system, working with those 3 components I stated earlier, and doing those 3 parts of the operating system, they're beginning to see how things look, feel, and are different for them. And so that is what's beginning to let them see that it can be different. I can operate day to day different. I can have more ease and flow. I don't have to have stress and anxiety be ruling how I operate. But it's easy to get in that flywheel. It's just we want to develop a new flywheel for people.
Yeah. Yeah,
We both do.
I have to believe there's some momentum involved, right? And so if I'll tell you what I think I heard. No, I'll tell you what I thought I heard. I think you said
Sure.
is, it's going to start off with like 1 win, right? You have all these negative thoughts, but if you catch 1 on day 1, and then maybe tomorrow you'll catch 2, and then the day after that you might catch 4. And the day after that, you might catch 8, but it's still 8 of 80,000, right?
Yeah.
But so it's going to take time. It takes commitment. You have to understand. I've been saying this a lot. You got to eat the elephant one bite at a time, right? Like you're not going to rewire your brain in a week.
Yeah.
You spent, in my case, 50 something years wiring it one way, and I'm not going to rewire it overnight. I wish I could. I heard a joke way back when. They said when they're handing out brains, I thought they said trains, so I asked for a big slow one.
I love that. I love that.
So,
well, and that's true. We don't realize how much how much of how we're functioning today is, and our thoughts and stuff came from, us, from our childhood and from all the things we're exposed to. I do a lot of work with people just getting clarity on the messaging that you've gotten over the years to know why your operating system and your saboteurs are using particular language with you. One of the things I have people do is do their master saboteur judge most wanted poster, where it's a series of questions to really get a poster of your master saboteur, and to be able to really, I always tell people you got to name it to tame it. So, and that gives people even
make it your screensaver. So every time you look at your computer, it's looking back at you,
Yeah.
So Jane, the information's amazing. So I'm a business owner and I'm thinking, yep, my mindset is limiting my ability to be successful at work, be successful at home, be successful in my community, whatever it is. What, other than calling you, and we're going to get your information up there so people can take that assessment and reach out if they want to. But, what kind of advice or what steps could someone take after they watch this and they're like, hey, I want to give this a shot, or I want to try something? What could they do?
Well, I'm going to start with, one of my favorite books is Your Brain at Work.
Okay.
It's one.
It's
and then,
well
of course,
bookmarked, Jane. I see there's a lot of bookmarks in there, a lot of
pages.
Do you
strategies for
you read? Are you a highlighter?
Yeah, and I journal in my books.
Okay.
I write coaching questions because it triggers like, oh, this would be a good question to ask my client. And then positive intelligence, just reading the book.
Okay.
I mean, through the work I do, I offer positive intelligence through my work with Shrazad's team, PQ, 8-week to 12-week boot camp where you get an intensive 8 to 12-week immersion into the operating system with coaching. And but the other thing that I really encourage people to do, I do this a lot with my clients, is to first start with awareness and watch for patterns. We have these automatic negative thoughts. Start watching how many, like just with little tickers on a piece of paper. How many of you in your day did you notice your thoughts were net negative, and how many were net positive? And
Can
just,
you define net negative thoughts for me? Just because I
well,
want to
just
make sure I understand it.
well, net negative is any negative thought. So we either have negative thoughts, we have neutral thoughts, and we have positive thoughts. So a negative thought would be just anything like, even like, I should do this. That's that judge saying you should, versus a net positive thought is, I'm going to do this.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
both positive and negative affirmations. People always think that affirmations are just positive, but we have negative affirmations that we say
Okay.
to ourselves. So it's and then our neutral thoughts, of course, are do I drink water or tea?
Right.
That's neutral. You have no emotion or feeling, etc. But just really noticing patterns in regards to how you're showing up in your thinking and
Okay.
the thoughts you're having. And I have a worksheet that I share with people around that. If they want it, they can get in touch with me. I'll send it to them for free. It's I have an arsenal of tools that I share with people, but it allows you to begin doing that. So pattern watching the patterns in your behaviors, your thoughts and actions, and then journaling. I know people like, I cringed about journaling too, but you don't have, there again, that's how our judge goes off and prevents us from moving into action, because you hear the word journaling and that triggers what? Oh,
Sure.
I don't like to do that. Okay, don't do that. All right. But there's a lot of high performers journal, and there's a lot of neuroscience related to journaling in regards to getting your thoughts out and writing them. And it doesn't have to be a book. It can be bullet points, make it what you want, but start just being conscious is what I would tell people. Start being, instead of working on autopilot, 98% of the time when I tell people this, we're on autopilot during the day. And that's why habits get ingrained in all of us. And what we need to do is to begin becoming more conscious about what we're doing, to be more present in what we're doing at the moment. And like I said, get in touch with me and take this saboteur assessment, and I do a complimentary debrief of it. One thing I will forewarn people is on the saboteur assessment from PQ, it does not assess the master saboteur, the judge. It just, because we all have it.
Right.
It just is looking at the accomplice saboteurs.
Cool. So you've already gone down that road. So if someone wants to reach out to you, Jane, how can we get in touch with you?
Just Weddle. .com or my Outlook address. I don't know if you guys are going to pop that, Jane Weddle at outlook.com.
Matt is typing frantically right now. There it is.
Yeah. Or, hey, I love phone calls. So, and I know that this is,
Is your phone number on your website?
I think it is. Yeah, but I'm willing to get, it's 402-429-5224. And let's have a 15-minute chat. If I'm not the right fit, and person for you, trust me, I've been in this business a long time. I will let you know. And I just like to help people approach life a little differently than they are, because I've seen people be in the weeds too long and be too stressed.
Right.
And things can be different. You can move forward differently in your business and in your life.
Very cool. And Matt, if you can just throw up that the saboteur assessment again here while we wrap up so people can see that.
Oh.
There you go.
That's probably taking you to the Positive Intelligence site. I know, Matt, somewhere I provided you guys, if you eventually want to put it somewhere, a link that goes there, but also has a form I created for people to fill out if they want to report back. But yeah, take it there. You'll get some emails from Positive Intelligence, and then reach out to me, and I'll be happy to do a complimentary debrief of it with you. So.
Very cool. Jane, thanks so much. This was
Thank
great.
You.
Super informative. I've enjoyed the information. It definitely resonated with me. You know, it makes a lot of sense, and hopefully some people out there are thinking, yeah, I could. I mean, I think we could all use some work in this area, right? We could all be a little more positive. We could all minimize our head trash and kind of have a better, more positive outlook. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Corey.
And I appreciate you joining us.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, there she was, Jane Weddle. That concludes season 2, episode 10. If you like what you heard, if you're watching us on video, you can see us on YouTube. You can check out the YouTube channel. You can check out our LinkedIn page. There'll be a replay here and other good information. You can check out our website. We'll have information on there for you too. And we have a free consultation that we give as well. If you want to talk about your talent planning, you want to talk about acquisition, you want to talk about an employee who just isn't getting it done the way they used to and what might be going on there, we're happy to have the conversation. No sales, no weirdness, just conversation. We're help first. If we can give you the tools you need to, we will. If you want to continue to work with us, we can talk about that too. The podcast is on all the major platforms. We encourage you to listen to that. Whatever platform you're on, if you like the information, we would love it if you would give us a follow, a subscribe, a like, a share, a shout out, a whatever. In this social age, it's all about exposure. So any help you can give us would be appreciated. We have another show coming up in 2 weeks. And until next time, stop grinding and start growing.